you need to go to the brand before looking for content distribution. If I am a German company coming to win over the US fans like Bayern Munich, I would go to BMW first. He thought, as soon as I get there, they're going to recognize it's a soccer city, Latino city. They know I'm Beckham. They're going to love me, and they're going to give me whatever I want. We want to introduce soccer, football to baseball fans. We want to get American football fans to like it. We want basketball fans to like it. I would not recommend that at all. I think that's a waste of time.
Welcome back to the Football Economy Podcast, the show where we discuss the business, finance, and strategy behind the beautiful game. Today, we have someone who helped write the playbook on how to connect soccer fans with the fastest growing demographic in the US. Before MLS figured out how to fill stadiums with fans from the Latino demographic, before the Mexican national team became a billion-dollar brand in the US, before Fortune 500 companies understood the power of Hispanic sports marketing, there was one man building the blueprint in Chicago. Our guest today is Carlo Castilla, a real estate maven, award-winning entertainment producer, and the sports marketing visionary who transformed empty seats into sold-out stadiums. He built the Chicago Fire's Hispanic marketing division from the ground up. He turned the Mexican national team into the most valuable marketing platform in the U.S. Hispanic market, managing accounts such as Coca-Cola to Nike to AT&T. He also launched the Soccer United marketing Latino strategy before most people even understood what that meant. By 2006, he was the most influential person in football when it came to the Hispanic market, earlier than teams like Real Madrid, Manchester United, and even the FIFA World Body. Before sports, beyond sports itself, Carlo has built a diverse career across entertainment, production, retail partnerships, and also consumer strategy, especially also real estate in Miami, making him one of the most versatile cultural strategists in the game. Today, we explore his journey, his impact, and the broader aspects of culture when it comes to soccer and European ability to penetrate that market from business perspective. Thank you so much for being on the show, Carlo.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for help inviting me, and I look forward to sharing these experiences with your fan base.
Great. I think let's start with, let's call it your early beginnings, so meaning your childhood. So if I'm not mistaken, you grew up in Costa Rica. That's correct. You went to school in San Rafael before moving to the US. Could you basically paint a picture to our listeners and our viewers as to what that childhood was like? What you remember from that childhood and what has been a lasting impact in the man you've become?
Sure. So I was actually born in New York, but my parents are from Nicaragua. So I grew up in Nicaragua. And after the revolution, my father got a job with the World Costa Rica. So I grew up in a very international environment where everybody had a different story that was non-traditional and they had a different viewpoint on how to engage the world. Then I moved to the US, to Washington, D.C., which, as you know, is a very cosmopolitan city, when I was 15. And even though I was going to a Catholic school or a public school, my awareness was always to engage with the world. So when I went to college, I purposely went to one that allowed those opportunities, and I involved in programs like organizing international conferences and leading the different clubs that would promote exchange between students from different parts of the world. That was my viewpoint. And then I went to an international business school at Thunderbird in Arizona to further develop these skills. When I started working, realized that I needed to go into football somehow. And thankfully, through a friend, I was able to find, at the time, to be honest with you, there were no MBAs going into football, right? Today, it's very common. Everybody wants to go into sports and entertainment. Back then, that was not the case. Nobody thought of it as an industry. Nobody thought it was a serious business and that I was wasting my time. I was just running on a hobby. And what I showed them over time was that there was a lot to pay attention to. Today, a lot of the top MBA students from the top schools are looking to get into the sports industry, become a magnet for top talent. And thankfully, we continue to grow and evolve as an industry. From that desire to actively participate in the global economy and the global world, that's what something that's been since it's been in since the beginning of my awareness in Nicaragua and Costa Rica.
Right, understood. And if I'm not mistaken, you took on leadership positions at university. Can you tell us a bit about that? It seems that leadership comes natural to you.
Sure. I must say that one of the key factors in my life was my cousin, who is half Japanese, half Nicaraguan. He grew up in Brazil. And for 1982, visit Costa Rica. And he taught me what Brazil and the Brazilian football is. And he taught me what the World Cup was. So I completely fell in love. It just fit perfectly to how I saw the world, but also how I could go and participate in it. It left a big mark in me. And so when I went to college, I got involved with a couple of groups, mostly the Latin American club, then the conflict resolution group, all the different international groups I would participate in because I was hungry to learn. Every time somebody came back from studying abroad, I would quiz them, I would for hours and ask them to share me pictures, tell me everything they knew. So by the time I got to start visiting these places later on, I had a good sense of what I wanted to learn from those places or what I wanted to go see. And the big involvement that I had in college was I organized the second edition of an international conference. I gathered 10 ambassadors to the White House from Latin and brought them over to our college so that the students could interact and learn from the experts directly. And so that was one of the top student programs that we had at the time. It was definitely it lit a fire as to the type of productions and events and the way that I wanted to engage people, how to produce big, high profile celebrity events. And that led me later on to consider how I would do that with football.
And today, when you see the let's call it the acceleration of the sports asset class, what do you think has changed currently in comparison to, let's call it, when you finish your MBA?
So the biggest thing is like we're at a stage where all the private equity people are starting to talk about it like the most important thing to go to consider the asset class sports, right? But I think the way they're interpreting it is, which is great. We want to have more options for funding and for investment and for the growth of the economic side of the business. The challenge is that they are very rooted in a transaction and or a fan base that you're building that it has a different lifespan and a different evolution compared to a spreadsheet. And so I think that we need to come up with a very proprietary or unique blend of what the financial system interprets as success and what a grassroots, fan fueled, consumer centric experience is like. So I think those
Hmm.
are going to have to themselves out. But right now, as you know, all the Americans are buying European teams. And I think that we're going to go through a wave of investment and then realization and then a hard assessment of how to make a better model.
Hmm. And in the intro, I mentioned that you had a bigger impact in sports marketing during the period of 2006, and this is a time when Real Madrid obviously were very dominant in La Liga. I think they won the 75th La Liga title, but did not win any um, any international, any championship in that moment in time. But they had Raúl, they had Zidane, they had Beckham, they had Roberto Carlos. They had a host of Brazilian players, Robinho, Cicinho, Batista. What did you see? What were you able to see during that period, specifically around, a very niche demographic, which is at that time, anyways, which is the Hispanic demographic? What were you able to see that, giants such as Real Madrid were not able to see?
So let me give you a little bit of background to get to that point. From 98 to 2003, I worked at the Chicago Fire soccer team, and I was for an organization that was completely committed to developing the Hispanic market. We had 2 million Mexican American fans or Mexican Americans living there. So the consensus of the leadership was let's give Carlo the free reign to build that. We had an agency that was doing events for the Hispanic market, but they were not developing the fan base. And so over time, I acquired all that responsibility to lead a group that would daily develop the Hispanic fan base and the commercial opportunities. And so in that transition, we started from a point where I would go outside and tell a Hispanic, we would like for you to come see our games. We would like for you to be part of what we're doing. And then would literally cuss me out. They would insult me. They were insulted that we were trying to play the game that they have known forever. And we were playing it. I don't know if you know, but at the time, Major League Soccer had very Americanized rules. There were a couple of things such as a penalty shootouts and different things to determine a tiebreaker. And the reality is that a lot of authentic or long-term football fans around the world would did not recognize it as an option. And so in that process, we faced a fan base that if it was Mexican, they already had their favorite Mexican teams, and they were insulted that we were even outreaching to them. If they're European, they didn't even look at us, right? They had their Man U's and the Real Madrids as their favorite team, so why would they ever consider supporting their local club in Chicago? Over time, in 2003, I went to Major League Soccer headquarters to start not only to lead Hispanic marketing for MLS, but also to start Soccer United marketing. And that transition is where you started to see the beginning of a global consciousness in some of these teams. At the time, you're probably too young for this, but at the time, the New York Yankees baseball team did a partnership with Manchester United, and they obviously they promoted it, but the reality was it wasn't anything more than an exchange of merchandise sales. So if you went to Yankee Stadium, you could buy United merchandise, and if you were at Old Trafford, you could buy the merchandise for the New York Yankees. But that was it. That same year that they did that agreement, I did the first agreement between a Major League Soccer team and a Mexican national club. It was Chicago Fire and Monarcas Morelia. Our president at the time, he had the vision for it, and he assigned me to go develop it, and we built it. It was to a level that I have to this day, I don't think I've seen, where not only were we selling each other's merchandise, where we're having games in each other's location against each other. We were exchanging players so they could develop in a different system. The Mexican players would come train in preseason with us, and our players would go train in preseason with them. And we had a commercial promotional event partnership that was much more meaningful. And the reason why we chose that team, not one of the bigger teams, is because there were the biggest proportion of Mexican Americans in Chicago come from the area of Michoacan, where the team is based, the Monarch area is based. So that's to give you an example of how I see a lot of opportunities even today, but most of the people coming in from the outside, they're only looking at the superficial part of it, and they want a quick transaction, or they do not really understand the consumer and they don't care for the consumer. I think that as the more you bring in the consumer and plug it in to the commercial viability of the project, then it becomes a much more profitable, much more longer lasting opportunity.
So you were able to see a vibrant community that had a, let's call it, already embedded football culture. During that period, what other cultures did you see that maybe did not have the strengths in numbers, but also had the potential to also benefit from this same strategy?
Good question. So at the time when we started the team, we had a leadership team, but the tactical on the field, on the coaching side, or the commercial side, where we were looking for undervalued assets. Right, that was the main way it made our break. At the time, we were the new team in 1998. For the past 2 seasons, DC United had become the dominant team in Major League Soccer. When we came and we won 2 tournaments our first year. One of them against DC United, which was the standard bearer. And the way we did that is by looking for undervalued assets. In addition to the Hispanic and everything we were doing, the coaches went out and found 3 all-star players from Poland who were available for a very small price. So the captain was Peter Novak, who had been at Munich 1860. He was the MVP and captain of 1860, and he was no longer in a contract. He came over. We had 2 other forwards who came from Poland, and we had Lubos Kubik, who had played for Fiorentina. So imagine just those 4 alone. And then we got Jorge Campos, the star goalkeeper from Mexico. And we had several others, and then we started filling in with great young American players. So at each step, we were building different appealing segments for the people who were young, who liked the young players. For the Polish, to give you a sense, we had our whole fan base is known as the Polish section because they were such a vibrant part of the stadium experience. We had, I would say, we had at least 5,000, if not more, but these are the most engaged, passionate fans that you can expect. And we broadcasting in three languages: English, Spanish, and Polish in radio, Spanish and English TV. And then at the time we were starting the internet broadcast in three languages. So it was definitely that hunger to learn and to give the fans what they truly want, I think is what really set us apart. And that's what, for the most part, it's what I gravitate towards, right? I want to be able to give consumers what they don't have. They may not know they don't have it. They may not know they don't want it, but offer it to them in a way that they can experience this and their fanhood on a daily basis. That's been my goal.
Right. And you able to partner or create partnerships with Fortune 500 companies at that early stage when soccer was still growing. What's the value proposition? How are you convincing these mega brands that it's worth an investment at this early stage?
Sure. I had an interesting experience when I came to Miami. I came to be the head of revenue for a USL team, which is second division here. This was 5, 6 years ago. And what surprised me was how the whole conversation when I went in was, where's the sponsorship? I got there 2 months after I got there, the COVID started. So it was a year of extreme challenges. We did make some significant accomplishments. And the most important one was that you can an acceptance of you're not going to be able to expect significant revenue from sponsors until you solve the fan issue. And what I find mostly in sponsorship people, in executives, in a lot of different places, is that they're looking to sell a ticket before the person has even had a chance to meet you, or had a chance to sample your stadium experience, or a chance to meet your players. And I think all of that seeding, you need to seed the value in people's lives in order for them to start sensing that it's something that they may like, want to participate, or be looking to get involved with. That's what I think is the main difference. And thankfully, I've been at different places, whether it's sports or not, where that's been the focus. And I think that that would be my biggest recommendation. If you're looking for the sponsorship money, you better give the sponsor a legitimate reason of why they should invest in your program, that you have consumers that they may want who are actively engaged with you. Let me give you an example here. I think this is very relevant for the times. We live in Miami. I'm in Miami. Before Messi came, there was no sponsorship, no attendance, nothing, right? Messi comes and everything seems to be addressed. Everything seems to be fixed. They have great sponsorship. They're now building a stadium. They have, let's say, the people recognize them as a team that has made it and is now worth over $1 billion. But I keep asking people, what would happen if Messi leaves right now? Probably what would happen is that all of that energy would be sucked away. You would have to go find another Messi. And as you know, that's not an easy thing to do. What I don't see in Miami is a presence of Inter Miami on a regular basis, on a daily basis, in the different soccer communities here. This is the city that has the most soccer fans in US. This is a city that is always doing something related to soccer. But the people that are engaged on a regular basis with Inter Miami are the ones who have kids who are connected to either they want to go to the games, or they're participating in the academy, or they want to see, mostly they want to see Messi. If you take out Messi, what do you get left behind? I don't see Inter Miami in any part of Miami. As you know, they play in the north, in North Fort Lauderdale, which is about an hour north, right?
Yeah.
But expect them to be working with the supermarket that's a sponsor, with the bank that's a sponsor, with the different partners that they have to do promotions so people would get excited. Oh, look, I'm going to go meet a player. I'm going to go see the mascot. They sponsored my charity. I was able to learn how Miami is building of the new stadium is going to help us all.
Yeah.
I don't see storylines. The
Yeah.
ones that I see so segmented to the corporate community that it never reaches the fans. And I just think that if you're waiting for that top line interest, top down interest to trickle down to the bottom, it's going to take a very long time. I would argue if you put the fan, the consumer at the center of the equation and go to a brand and tell them, look, we're going to do all these events in the soccer community, in the soccer clubs, in the soccer nonprofits, in the soccer promotions, whatever it is, but we're involved in the community, then the brand will say, how can I lose? Because if I go with you, it's going to seem a lot more relevant to going with a soccer team, the dominant soccer team here, and I will be able to have a daily involvement with those consumers. But that kind of, it sounds simple, but to get most football executives to think that way, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is something that Miami Heat have done very well. I mean, they have no superstar players, at least recently, but they've had
Well,
this. I think you stated this also. They've had this more than 10 year sellout streak. By embracing the community, by partnering with like elementary schools, and I think soccer, obviously in the US, can embody that strategy by partnering with grassroots initiatives, and that way it becomes more authentic, but also, like you say, has that vertical integration into society. So it's a good point you make there for sure.
to give you an example, one thing that I think I posted on this recently, I really think the next step, one thing is to go and create programs for the fans and try to build them out like that, build a fan base like that. But I think in the future, we'll have to go beyond that. Let me give you an example. Let's say you already have 10 corporate partners, but none of them reflect the community. Maybe there is a school that the community center, the educational center, the adult learning center, that school facility becomes the place where everyone meets, gathers, shares. Maybe they watch even soccer games there. But if you don't make that school your regular partner and you only visit them once a year to take a mascot to do autograph signings with a player, then you're really missing the boat. You need to take ownership and be a collaborative part of the ownership of the community centers. I'm not talking about just a school or a community center, literally. I'm saying is wherever people are participating, they need to be part of that. When I was giving some advice to the Marlins a couple of years ago, and they've done a couple of things well in a couple of years. But as you may know, the Miami Marlins have had a very big issue because in three different times they have either been the champion or have had the best team, and then they sell all their players, so the fans don't have a reason to follow them anymore. Now they're going in more into the show aspect of it, but I think the love could be a lot higher if they treated their fans better. But what I was telling them is, what if you go to all the amateur baseball teams in Miami? All the youth, all the adults, and all the people that gather to watch baseball in different bars. And you give them an offer they cannot refuse to be your partner. So they will all get significant discounts to buy merchandise from you and to resell it to their friends. They will get significant discounts to come to your games. They'll get significant value by bringing their company to do an outing and using your stadium for a corporate retreat or for a entertainment area or to host their VIPs. The thinking is we either give away tickets to bring them in and that loses all its value, or better, make them a plan so that throughout the year for multi-year, they are committed to you and you're committed to grow with them. That show them that their success is your success. Once you flip that switch, everything changes. What I see is just a lot of pitching and failing, pitching and buy this now. Oh, look, I got a better price. Oh, look, it's just like a market. And this is not a market in the traditional sense. This is a relationship building opportunity. We need to go deep to figure out what matters to them and serve them in a way, even if you have nothing to, let's say you have no players. Let's say you are the worst team like the Marlins, the worst team in the league. You have no players, they have no budget. I guarantee you, all those people who are baseball fans would love to come to participate with you somehow, or would love to get engaged, or would love to offer that value to the people they care about, their families, their friends, their colleagues, their partners, their clients. Those are all people that associated with a sports team, your value could be much greater. And I see the same thing in football, right? I don't know how much, have you been able to experience American sports here?
No, not yet.
No. In some ways, it's very developed, and in some ways, it's very underdeveloped. And so it's very, I think you have to be very flexible in how you process the information. But the bottom line is make the fan the base of it instead of telling the fan what they're going to do.
All right. I mean, it's very simplified when you say it that way. Like you build the strategy around the fan base or the fan itself, and listen to the customer in that sense. I mean, you've already stated publicly that John Spoelstra, like I think that's his probably butchering his name, but his principles, how to sell the last seats in the house. And based off that book, which is like a sports management guru type book and toolkit, what would your advice be to European executives who are looking for ways to embody one of those strategies to penetrate the US fan base?
I think in general, we're getting better, right? There's been an evolution of wisdom and of experience. But what I see mostly is this bewilderment. People thinking, I have so much to figure out coming in if I'm buying a team, or if I'm leading a team, or if I'm leading the sales team, or if I'm just a salesperson. I have so much to figure out, and I don't know how to be relevant to a fan. I don't know how to get them to buy a ticket. And so my recommendation, the first thing is simplify, simplify, simplify to the core point. What is the basic of business? You have to sell a ticket. If you don't understand what it takes to sell a ticket, then you don't understand sports marketing. You don't understand sports. You don't understand the business. And I would recommend at the least, I don't care if you're an attorney, if you want to be an agent, I don't care what part of the business you want to be in, I recommend do at least one season or 3 months or some period of time where day in and day out, your role is to go get somebody to buy a block of tickets or one season ticket or even one ticket for them to pay for it. What does it take? And my solution is if they're not willing to pay for it, go create some alternative value. Either add value to the equation. So it's what's my recommendation instead of discount. I don't believe in discounting, but give so much value that they can't resist. And in the way you look at a season, if you have 20 games or 50 games, focus on one game. Make that one best game that you have. Maybe you're playing against the top team in the league and they have the stars. You have nothing to offer, but make that game the cornerstone. So you would use that game and add two more games that are the two second and third best games you're going to have all year. And there you create a game package.
Right.
Maybe got them to come to one game, sell them that 3-game package, and then create the next 5 games, the best 5 games in a 5-game package until you're able to sell the full season to them, right? But keep gradually, start them where they are, meet them where they are, and build them up. I've had those people who hated me. To give you an example, in 1998, I go to Chicago and people were insulting me in public. Why would you pretend to play the game that I've loved my whole life? By 2003, we had left Soldier Field to play at a small stadium far away from the Hispanic community. We came back to play at Soldier Field. That day, when all we were doing, there was no celebrity, there was no big special aspect, no big promotion. It was just regular tickets being sold to whoever wanted to come. And we invited everyone to come welcome the team back to Soldier Field, historic Soldier Field. 7,000 people showed up, and 10,000 of them were Hispanic, paying full price. In the history of Major League Soccer, until then, now I'm sure you can get it with a Messi or with a celebrity. LAFC or other teams have celebrities. We did not have a Hispanic celebrity. But the way that we had built the team over 6 years was that they came to welcome the team back to Chicago after originally they thought we were an aberration. We were an insult to their soccer lineage. And so that's what I'm talking about, going all in, and you're not going to know the answers, but make a commitment to figure out the answers and make a commitment to listen to where the answers are instead of you posing your packages or your price levels. A lot of people don't want to work with smaller organizations in sponsorship, right? I say make a small package so that you can get the key ones, the right ones in that may lead you to the big ones.
Yeah, I think then what you're also saying is that there's also potential for upselling and also potentially cross-selling. But then there's also the fact that to prove what you're saying is correct is the fact that it's a tried and tested method. Even Netflix is employing that method in terms of like their sports package. This is their go-to-market strategy for sports, at least so far. We don't know what the future holds, but so it does make sense what you're saying. I agree with you completely. So there's a big gap between the amount of soccer that's consumed in US and the amount of so media content is consumed in the US and the amount of US specific content that is produced by European clubs. There's obviously a big upside in closing that gap, but from a European perspective, how can they close this gap?
So the one thing I'm sorry, just to be clear, can you repeat the last part?
So
Well,
from a European perspective, how can they close the gap between the content that is consumed in US by non-European clubs and the content that they themselves produce?
so obviously I've been following this for decades, right? Now, how European teams are trying to be relevant here. And for a long time, I've been pushing they need to tell stories, right? Relevant stories so
Mm,
the fans develop. And I think Bayern Munich started doing it well or is doing it well. And I think that La Liga is definitely getting up to speed. And I think that Barcelona and individuals like Jorge in Monterrey now is reaching out and looking for those opportunities to tell their stories, their journeys. I think the key gap is that they don't have right now, since I'm an entertainment producer and I do a lot of sports content, you need to go to the brand before looking for content distribution. If I am a German company coming to win over the US fans like Bayern Munich, I would go to BMW first. Go start it, even if I don't care if they're getting a free ride. You probably getting making the money somewhere else. But give them something for free that will be
mm,
impact. Already have a huge BMW fan base. You already have a Bayern Munich fan base that you're trying to develop. But go show them how together with the brand, you can tell more stories more impactfully. If you don't have the brand involved, then right now I think it's a waste of time, to be honest with you, because it's gonna take you so long to build a fan base to at a relevant level to then bring in the brands. It's gonna take you too long.
right.
Go
So
figure out what stories you can tell with the right brand partners and make those a prominent part. I bet your social media is gonna go through the roof because you're gonna have so many different touch points. All the deal in this case, the dealerships, the retail stores, the associated clubs, there's the driving clubs or BMW clubs or all these things. You're trying to tap into. The way I see it is you're looking at partnering with a big organization that then has subsets and segments. So BMW Global would be one, then BMW North America would be one, and then you go to the dealership group, and then you go to the clubs, and then you go to the fan clubs, and then you go to the merchandise. You go to all the places where there's a commercial touch point for a consumer and your brand. And BMW would be working in tandem with the team, with Bayern Munich in this case, to go and daily affect those people's lives.
right,
If you don't have the brand, some people may say, well, the correlation between the brand and the team is not as high as we would like it. Well, you better start with something,
yeah,
something more. You're leveraging what BMW has in brand equity and you're developing a fan base. You're looking for those where it does make sense. Those people who are consumers of one and the other and live in the United States or are
right,
looking to that to me is the key. In the last year or so, entertainment has gone all into branded content. If you don't have the brand support, it's going to be there. You're going to be in the back of the list to get a program, a show approved by
right.
Netflix. So that's something that people need to wake up to. Don't look at it as revenue immediately. It's storytelling. And the brand's going to
Storytelling.
get a lot more value for that storytelling.
Right. Understood. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but someone else could look at this and say, well, that makes sense. And that's also like a pathway towards penetrating the US market quickly. But if you want to look at it in a different way, it's potentially possible to, I mean, it's not being done right now for whatever reasons, cannibalization or whatever, fear of competition, but just in sports could collaborate. So, for instance, the MLB clubs could collaborate with the Premier League clubs and try to have that sort of like cross dissemination of sports in different countries. So the US Major League Baseball could come into England, and then football could come into the US through Major League Baseball. But this is something that's not being considered or done because of fear of competition or cannibalization or just fear of like eroding your retention. We'll speak to this and tell me what you think. Does this make sense? Is it something that is way far fetched from reality?
So let me start by saying that since I started in football many years ago, people have always said, we want to introduce soccer, football to baseball fans. We want to get football, the American football fans to like it. We want basketball fans to like it. I would not recommend that at all. I think that's a waste of time. Focus on the football market in the US. Do you know that in the US, there are 90 million football fans? But in Major League Soccer, only 11 million go to those games. So you have a 80 million soccer population, football population that you haven't gotten to, and you're trying to convert somebody who doesn't like football to like it. And you're somebody who has their whole life made around other sports to come into football. And people say, "Oh, now the World Cup is going to be an opportunity to introduce the world's game, the beautiful game to all these American football games." So at the draw, did you watch the draw last week? The World Cup draw?
Yes.
They had people like
Yes.
Eli, they had people like Wayne Gretzky, and I'm like, okay, it's fine to have
Yeah.
them, but they should not be a prominent part of your marketing. You're wasting your time.
No.
If your business is to go make somebody who hates you pretty much. Here, there's hatred for football, for soccer. If you're an American football fan, you think that global football is the last thing they would want to do ever. They may,
Right.
because their kids play it, but it's not what they're gonna consume, right? It's not a man's a game, and in many ways, it's not American. It's not. They come up with any excuse, no matter what the evidence says. But the point is this: what about those other 80 million who are playing in youth teams? Who are many of these kids never go to an MLS game, but they're going to Europe for training. They go develop starting at 13 years old. They go to coaching. They go to camps. They go to the youth academies over there, and they don't go to a Major League Soccer game. So why should people worry about partnering with the other teams when they're not relevant for them? I
Yeah.
think before you go to a baseball team, if you're Bayern Munich, let's say, you come to the US before going to the New York Yankees, I would go and partner with a amateur league. Here in the US, there's German clubs in different places, and they have good football programs. And now they're probably incorporated into Major League Soccer. But I would go there and figure out what brands are relevant, what teams are relevant, what companies are supporting what they do, and how to build those. I think those centers of power for the German community in the US are going to give you the answers of how to sell your German brand in the US because they've been living it for decades. We
Yeah.
have in Chicago, we would have Schwaben, a beautiful facility, beautiful club that goes back decades. And you would go there, you think you're in Bavaria, right? You have this amazing facility, and the people are so proud. That's where Germany played in 1994 in Chicago, and they all came out to support them, right? For the World Cup. But you're looking at go where the fans are. Make it easy for people to share with you what some of the solutions may be. And even if you don't know the solutions at the beginning, they're going to be committed to help you figure them out. They're going to
All right.
help you all.
Right. No, understood. I agree with you. And we are seeing a lot of code cutting across the board. But when we talk about the Hispanic community, 14% are more engaged across digital native media than non Hispanics. So meaning streaming, social media, so on and so forth. So my question to you is, what is driving this? Why is it that there's this difference between non-Hispanic communities and Hispanic communities when it comes to engagement on digital native media?
So I would say that the Hispanic, either Mexican teams, South American teams, even here in the Hispanic community, I think there's very little relevant content being done, to be honest with you. What is being done is not memorable. And when you do have some programs that are brought bigger than that, right? When you have the Wrexham show, when you have other shows, those understand that you need celebrity engagement. People who are already established, put them into a soccer context, it becomes relevant, right? The challenge is that people in football believe that their celebrities, everybody cares about. And I think that that's when you need to look at how to bridge into the personalities that can help you along. There's a lot of football, soccer fans here who may not participate, or in the past have not participated until they've been asked to participate. And then you realize, oh, that guy's a fan, right? So you have LeBron James owns a piece of Liverpool, and we have all these celebrities Tom Brady owns a piece of, trying to remember the name of the team, but Burn Burnley, it was a
Birmingham.
Bur-
Birmingham. Yeah.
Birmingham. And so you have those opportunities. How can you tell stories based on that? So for me, it's highly underdeveloped. The Hispanics, what it is, it's a pastime, right? So what they're doing is just consuming, let's say, beginner content. What I believe the opportunity is to go tell stories in a much more intimate way, a much more personal way. In general, the Hispanic community does not want to share as much. Where they're more shielded, guarded in their personal lives. But now there's more that want to share. So go find the ones who have the personality, who have the disposition to become entertainers and make those the pieces of it. Because if you have someone, as much as I appreciate what Messi represents, compared to Cristiano Ronaldo, he barely speaks. He barely does interviews. He barely wants to open up. He's very guarded. Cristiano Ronaldo's ready to perform, right? So you need to find those personalities that are ready to give you that show. If not, it becomes a much less valuable content. Hispanics are consuming a lot because in the traditional media for a long time, soccer was not prominent. So they went to social media. That's the evolution of content for soccer in the US. The big networks were not broadcasting soccer content, so the internet became the lifeblood for soccer fans. That's where they got their information, and little shows are developed from them. But I would argue that there's a lot more entertainment to be done in the sports world. That's why I'm involved in this space, right, with my production company.
So the World Cup is coming up. That very month where the World Cup is, going to be prevalent, is going to be a high. It's going to be a high spending month across the U.S., especially the regions where the World Cup is going to be hosted in. So for people like you who have like exposure to hospitality or real estate and investment and operations across like the U.S., specifically Miami, what's the playbook for countries coming in or brands who federations, brands, investors who are looking to capture that possible spend?
So I think you need to create a plan, right? You need to have a local partner to create a plan that fits your goals. You could tell me, look, I just want a summer long test to introduce my brand or to test this idea to see if I'm going to put more money into it. So it really has to be tailored to what your needs are. Or you may have a long-term plan that says, look, I'm committed to football in the US. I want to grow it out. To give you an example, I used to work for Philip Anschutz, who was he became the preeminent owner of the Major League Soccer and a couple of the projects that I worked on. And now he owns AEG, which is the biggest or one of the biggest sports entertainment conglomerates that included the Lakers and the Staples Center and many other teams around the world. He went to the final of the 1994 World Cup at the last minute. Somebody gave him a ticket. And he goes, he never knew anything about soccer. He goes to the final in the Rose Bowl and he sees masses of people, 103,000 people, Americans, and people from all over the world celebrating the world's game, the beautiful game. And he completely flipped the switch. And he goes, I need to get in on this business. Because at the time he was developing the entertainment assets, the distribution assets. So he became a film producer. And he ended up buying Major League Soccer, and he ended up buying lots of theaters, movie theaters. So he said, if I create the content and I distribute it, he also owned railroads, so he put fiber optic cable that distributed the content to all these theaters, and he would be able to show performances from the Met Gala, from the Metropolitan Symphony, or from any place around the world. You would be able to broadcast live events to those theaters. So that type of thinking came out of an unexpected last minute invitation. And I think that's the most important part of this all. It's not that you have to figure it out by next summer when the World Cup ends. What I recommend is, like me, 1982, I got inspired by understanding what the World Cup was, understanding what Brazil represented in the World Cup. And that's what I encourage people. Just go participate. Try to go to the games, go hang out with people to watch the games, go to the fan fest areas, watch it on screen, get immersed into the market before making a big bet. Figure out where you want to play. And when you are ready to play and you're ready to figure out what you want to do, Go create a plan with a local partner. It could be a broadcaster, but in general, broadcasters are not in the business of building fans. They're in the business of marketing events. I would go to a
Mm.
combination of team that has great grassroots penetration or a celebrity that prioritizes grassroots. Because there you're not just going to get the media recognition one time every month or one time a year. You're going to be following up on a regular basis to understand the business that you want to play in. That's my top recommendation. Instead of saying, "Oh, the world," everybody says, "Oh, Cup is coming. All these people are giving us such an amazing opportunity." The reality is that it doesn't matter. If your opportunity may be very different than mine, and what you want to do with it or the ability to do something will depend on who you partner with.
Yeah, understood. So, I mean, you've covered a lot in the last few minutes, especially when you talk about U.S. penetration by European clubs. So, I mean, a few things that come to mind from what you've stated is that the four key elements that drive U.S. growth for European clubs is localized content, potentially year-round digital presence, community engagement, commercial partnerships, the right ones. So, out of these four, let's call it key elements, which ones would you say deliver the fastest revenue lift, and which ones would you say build the strongest long-term equity?
And let me preface that by saying that everyone's looking for a quick buck in football in the US, and usually it rarely works out. It's very rare that I've seen that happen. So,
Mm.
my first recommendation is consider why you're doing this. My recommendation is if you're looking for a quick buck, do merchandise. Create something that becomes trendy and that you're selling, or create some type of content that becomes trendy, right? Either content or probably short form, I'm guessing, or a product that people need, an accessory or some type of promotional product that people all want because it's a desirable item of the month or the summer or the World Cup. That would be the quick way. For realistic opportunities, excuse me, I really think that coming to meet, for example, I have a friend who manages the World Cup for the Dutch embassy in Washington. So what he does, he brings Dutch companies to visit the stadiums where the World Cup is going to go to meet the potential part. Most of these are tech companies. So he's bringing them to introduce them to their future customers, to their future collaborators, to their future investors. And they have been touring. They started this summer and they'll continue through the World Cup. That's the kind of host that you need. Find a host that has multidisciplinary relationships to open your mind and connect you with the different opportunities for you to explore before you come up with anything. I think the biggest mistake people make in football in the US is they know what to do and usually it fails miserably.
Right.
I know a lot of money who have lost most of it because they tried to do something like that.
Right. Talking about money and losing a lot of it. Let's say you are the GP of a sports fund that's dedicated to the US market. Let's call it 20 million, $30 million. And your strategy is to obviously return have a return on investment to your LPs. What would be your four key thesis, four key investment pillars or thesis for your, let's call it your, ROI targets?
So, are you talking just football alone or sports in
Just
general?
sports in general.
Okay, one thing I would like to mention is that I think that a project, have you studied USL, the second division
Yeah, a
football?
little bit. Yes, I'm familiar. Yeah,
MLS is already
it's mature.
overvalued,
Yeah,
so it's much too thick, too rich. I really think that USL is an example of the type of opportunities that people need to consider because they have learned from everything that we've been through until now, right?
right.
So, for example, the big difference in Major League Soccer was going from an event company that was renting venues to them making a real estate play to build their facilities. So if your team went bankrupt, you still use the stadium to rent it to concerts or other people for events. And stadium did not make money, you still had land to sell. That was the biggest evolution in football in the US. But now, 20, 25 years later, USL is maximizing that. Everywhere they go, it's and to be fair, it was minor league baseball who really started that back in the 90s, who were creating urban centers where the stadium was the centerpiece, but it was all retail, hotels, and entertainment areas. Right now, we're about to inaugurate one next year here in Miami, where the new stadium for Inter Miami is going to be like, right? But that all started in Major League Baseball, and I think USL, the price is much more accessible. I don't know what the expansion fees are, but until recently, there were 15, 20 million. So it's much more accessible than the $1 billion you probably have to spend to get into MLS. And I think that that comprehensive business model where sports is the brand, but you're able to create a lot more traffic, a lot more partners, a lot more mature thinking of what the business is. I think those are the examples that you should gravitate towards, or at least study. That's where I see a lot of value, and the way they keep growing. They have several divisions, so by now they have dozens and dozens of teams, and many of them are looking to develop their urban centers based on a stadium. So they seem like a very accessible price point with a great value that they're offering, and it's still the big investors haven't arrived yet. So they're starting to arrive, but I think it's the right time to get in there in the next year or so before it gets too expensive.
Right. So Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami, I think he's been there since, if I'm not mistaken, 2009, right? Or at least he's been in the, let's call it, city commission.
Yeah, he was commissioner before. He was a mayor the last 4 or 5 years. His term is about to end, but he's outgoing. But yes,
2017. So yeah, 2017. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the 2017. He was a mayor since 2017. But no, so I wanted to tie him into the Beckham, let's call it, ownership play. So obviously David Beckham faced a lot of like trials trying to get that stadium up and running. Can you just paint a picture of what those like trials look like from a political standpoint? So obviously, when it comes to working with the policy side of things and how that should be given to potential investors who want to come from the European side, but also investors in other parts of the US who want to learn from the mistakes that he made and accelerate their pathway to having, let's say, investment in a USL club.
sure. I think it's a great question. It summarizes a lot of the things that we're talking about. When Beckham came in 2007, Major League Soccer, so your consumers or viewers understand the story. Beckham had the right, as part of his contract to pay the LA Galaxy, he had the right to buy an MLS team for 25 million, which is subsidized or
An
a
option.
great.
Yeah.
He activated that in 2014. Started going around to see where he could build it. He went to Vegas. He went to all different places, and he ended up coming to Miami testing. He was trying to figure out what to do. He thought, as soon as I get there, they're going to recognize it's a soccer city, Latino city. They know I'm Beckham. They're going to love me, and they're going to give me whatever I want. He wanted a stadium that was in, let's say, very convenient or beautiful or luxurious areas. It didn't work. Why? Because Beckham is nobody here. Nobody has a relationship with him. Nobody has spent any time with him, and nobody has any business at stake with him. And so it was only 4 years later. First, he partnered going back to which are the right partners. He partnered with Mauricio Claure, who was the president of Sprint Telecommunications, who lived in Miami, but is not really part of the community. Right? He was not part of the boards, the nonprofits. He was not a leader, let's say, locally. He was just a national figure. And he was not deep. He did not have deep Miami ties. Here, it's Cubans who are the main power structure, right? And so over time, Beckham ended up accepting is, look, my name is not going to get me there. I better go with people who know how to build a stadium, who know how to get the permits, and who know how to get the city approvals, right? And so he partners with Lemartec, the general contractor, that is owned by the most prominent Cuban American family here. And voila, everything starts to fall into place. So they build the stadium in Fort Lauderdale to start playing for a couple, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And then they start building the new stadium that's coming to Miami. Everything has been seamless. There has been no issue. It was a unanimous vote. Before, he couldn't get one vote. He partners with these construction people, Cuban construction people, and all of a sudden, there's no objection. There's no impediment. There's no delay. Everything is on track. And so I think that's what investors lead to, whether you're investing money or you're building a brand or you're trying to start content in this market, is go where the partners are having an impact already. Where is the relevant interaction with the consumer? Who's going to get you there? Because if you think that you're Real Madrid and by coming here, all of a sudden everyone's going to love you all the time and consume the way you expect them to, then most likely, based on what I've seen, it's not going to happen. Now. Your expectations are going to have to be checked and corrected at some point.
Right. I think that's it for this section of the podcast episode. Let's move to the last section, which is just basically a quick fire round. I ask you a quick question, you can give me a quick answer. I think the first question would be, in the US specifically, what grows faster, sponsorship or merchandise?
What grows faster?
Yes.
No, as you have a easier path to revenue, probably to profit. I think that it depends on who you are, of course, right? If your brand is not known here, then you're going to have to spend some time in building it. But if you already are established elsewhere, then definitely start with merchandise. But
Right.
not merchandise. It's getting it to the right people who are going to make it interesting for the local community, right? Go to the partners who are community leaders, influencers, media personalities who are going to regularly, not just once a year, but on a daily basis, they're going to be pushing your product. That would be the one. Sponsorship, I would look at it as as you know, it's the most mature part of this whole equation. You have to have, it's a very select group of people who are ready to do sponsorship well. And most of the ones that do it are not ready for it.
Right.
So you very mature in your process of trying other things, being frustrated, and considering now a sponsorship opportunity.
Right. When it comes to the marketing mix, local radio, is it still useful? Is it outdated? Is it undervalued?
I think it's still relevant. They're still holding the numbers and the revenue, and they're still in it. I think the challenge with radio is that the personalities have gravitated elsewhere, right? They're all becoming personal brands. And so I think that right now we're developing a show all purely based on influencers. And I think that's where you have to go. How does even if you're on radio, make sure that it has the right personality mix. You could have a radio station or platform that reaches your demographic, but it may not be relevant to a high degree for your consumer. And so
Right.
I think that they're going to sell you general consumer segment. I would go further and say, no, it's my brand. How does that correlate with that consumer segment that you're trying to sell me?
If we wanted to pilot a unique strategy in the US outside of Miami, what would be the ideal city to do that in?
If you want to build a business outside of Miami, what city should you go to? So you're saying, is this for football?
Yeah, for sports.
Oh, for sports. So I would say that look at the USL before look at their newer investments. And right now they're going to build a huge complex in Oklahoma City. The whole downtown is going to be restarted. You're looking at tertiary cities. It's not the cities you know already. It's not the next wave. It's the third wave. I would look at it's usually maybe a couple in Texas, maybe in the Midwest. There's a lot, especially for football, there's a lot of soccer towns in these areas. All the kids play. So the likelihood of keeping those fans and upgrading them for a long time is there. What you don't want is to go to a place because it's inexpensive or because it's famous, but the demographics or the consumer base is not reflective of your projection.
All right. If there's a real estate bubble in Miami, if that's true, well, how does that impact the long-term valuation of Inter Miami's entity as an entity? It's currently valued at over 1 billion. I'm asking, is it overvalued, especially considering the fact that Messi obviously is still playing there?
So yes and yes. There is a bubble in Miami, and now we're seeing the correction because obviously we had a big bubble in 2008. It popped, and then it started going up. There's not enough inventory, so you could argue there's no bubble. But by now you're seeing a correction because the prices were too high. So we've seen a decrease in about 15% of pricing. Let's say for normal homes. If you're in the upper luxury 10 $20 million homes, then those are holding up a little better, but it's still you're not getting as much competition. Before you have a lot of competition for properties, now you're not getting that much. So it's holding up pretty well so far, but the reality is this: there's not enough housing for the middle class, lower middle class, or working class. So they're priced out and the prices have gone up, and yet nobody's paying those prices that the sellers want.
Right.
And how does that affect my Inter Miami and their valuation? Well, it's yes, it is a small group of owners that controls who gets into that club, right? There's 30 teams in MLS, and that's where the inflation comes in, or the overvaluation comes in. It's not necessarily because of the Miami market. It's just that you have a selective group of owners who determine what the values and prices and future development and investments are for that group.
I mean, so it's a scarce asset basically, and obviously, unlimited demand. Okay, interesting. I mean, last few questions. So I think I would like to ask you what have been the peak highs for you, and what have been the most challenging periods during your career in sports marketing.
Oh wow, I've had so many. Like I can talk forever, as you can tell. But I think I'll mention this one because it was really special and it was more recent. When I went to Vegas to help, I was selling sponsorship to help build a USL team there, Las Vegas Lights, playing in an old baseball stadium. There was nothing glamorous about it, but there were some really interesting parts of it. One of them was we. I argue that don't worry so much about getting that big sponsor. This is one of my main conclusions of sponsorship. Don't worry so much about getting the big money from key partners. Even for a lower money, the point is, are they going to help you along? Are they going to introduce you to their partners? So in this case, a supermarket, we wanted to charge them $100,000 for a sponsorship for this supermarket. And I said, look, I don't care if they pay 10,000. What I do need is for them to look me in the eye and tell me, we are going to be partners for the rest of this 3-year term. And you're going to introduce me to your circle and your family and everyone else who's doing business with you so that I have a shot at getting to know them and see if there's a way to build a business with them. So we found them. They paid 40,000, I think it was, which was great. For them, it was significant because they never spent that much money on a sponsorship. And 3 months later, they tell me, I come to them, I say, look, we were going to, my proposal was we're going to create a TV show based on our celebrity coach that we had at Las Vegas Lights. But in order to do that, I needed $5,000 to bring the producer and the director and the other talent to go film something for one weekend. So I ended up creating a sponsorship package for $5,000. And I asked the supermarket, who do you know that could be interested in doing promotions with us for this small price? For them, it may have been a lot. He refers me to Jarritos, which is the Mexican soft drink company. It's big here. Maybe you haven't heard it, but look it up. They do interesting work. We did an amazing job working together locally for $5,000 for one weekend. A bunch of 8 different promotions. They loved it, and they referred us to the regional director, who then bought a $40,000 sponsorship for the following. This happened at the beginning of March, and by April we had a 40. We went from 5,000 to 40,000, and we kept working with them so well and building up the relationship that 8 months later we sold them a $550,000 sponsorship so they could be the exclusive soda soft drink of the stadium. So we in 8 months, 9 months, we went from 5,000 to $600,000 in sponsorship. This was the biggest beverage sponsorship in the history of USL. And it's all because of that complete commitment to figuring out what does the consumer and the brand want out of this. Everything we did was relevant. Everything we did was meaningful. It was building the business based on where the consumer was. This is a brand they loved. We put it in places and we brought it to them with the biggest celebrities we could find, the biggest entertainment we could find, the most outlandish promotions we could come up with. And that to this day is one of my favorite projects or evolutions. We signed a 3-year deal with them after starting on a one weekend, a 3-day. We went from 3 days to 3 years.
Oh, that's impressive. And then the most challenging,
And I've had bigger deals, but this is one that has a special place in my heart.
I can
The
tell.
most, I think the biggest challenge for me was when there's been places. One time this is 20 years ago. We had a sponsorship with Doritos. Do you know Frito-Lay, the chips, the snacks? It's part of Frito-Lay Pepsi.
Okay.
So the snack side of Pepsi, right? We had a sponsorship with them, and they were caught. The last day of the sponsorship, I sold a sponsorship to McDonald's for activation at that one game, and they wanted something that connected. McDonald's wanted something that connected at the stadium to what they were going to do a month later at the World Cup in Germany. And so I had to give McDonald's their space so that it connected to the global campaign, But in order to do that, I had to take out a piece from the Doritos and the Frito-Lay sponsorship. And these are both people, both sides that I loved working with. That I really, I mean, I'm not here to undercut it. I wasn't doing it in a mean way, but to be in that position where you're gonna disappoint or upset someone dearly because it was their right, and it wasn't. It was we did the best we could, but in the end, the side that got something taken away took it personally, right? So
Mm,
those are the parts where you go, I'm trying to help everyone, and sometimes you can't do that, right? Sometimes something's gonna have to give,
right.
and those are that really get me because I really enjoyed working with both of them. So the fact that we couldn't close out both partnerships and fully fully in the way that they expected, it was the hardest ones to do.
Right. And final question. Obviously, I know that How to Sell the Last Seat in the House was an influential book for you. And the way you speak and the way you tell the story of your highs and also your challenges, it sounds like Give and Take has been a very influential book for you. But I wanted to know what book has shaped who you've become as a man,
As a person,
as a person. Yeah, what book has
as a
impacted
man.
you most? Yeah.
So look, I read a lot. So I was a history major, so I liked a lot of history books. What book was the most influential? Let me mention this because not many people know. It's just one example, not the most influential, but one that really I think people need to look into. There is a sports writer, Joe McGinnis from the Boston Herald, which is one of the top soccer cover the
Yeah.
newspapers back in the day. I don't know if it still is, but he fell in love with a team from Italian soccer that was in ninth division, and they made it to Serie B, one below Serie A. And they did this in like 6 years, I think. So that I'm going to move from Boston to Abruzzo, the area in the mountains east of eastern part of the city. Not many people, very proud and insular. They speak their own dialect there. And he moved there for a year to figure out if they could make the journey to Serie A. Right? The most amazing story from ninth division to second division. Let's see if they can go to first division. So he's there for a whole year. And the reason why this book is so amazing is because it's like the World Cup to me. It opens up what life is about. And it shows you how much he loves Italy, calcio, football, everything that had to do with that story as a soccer fan, as a soccer reporter, as a human being, how you can fall in love with Italy on every level, how it can nurture you, how it can inspire you, how it can let you celebrate. And then after you're so in love with it, then comes the drama, how it can completely break your heart, and how you, in the end, how you bring those two together to accept this is the life experience. Right? This is the hero's journey of becoming a more evolved person, a wiser person, somebody who understands that it's not just about the idealized version of this. It's not just about the drama, but how do we reconcile those two into who we are?
Right.
So it's called The Miracle of Castel di Sangro. Castel di Sangro is the town. It's a beautiful, beautiful book that I recommend to anybody. I don't know how available it is, but if you read it, I guarantee you, if you love football, if you love what football can represent, the World Cup, then you have to read that book because it's as good as it gets.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carlo, for being on the podcast. I really did appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I congratulate you on what you're doing. I think this combined with the other businesses that you are integrating and building, I think I can't wait to see what you do next. I would love to stay in touch. And if there's an opportunity for you to help you here in the United States, please let me know. I could be happy to do so.
Perfect. Thank you again. I really do appreciate your kindness. And that's it for this episode with Carlo. If you liked this episode, please do share with the like minded folks. Until next time, have a good one. Take care and bye bye.